The term martial arts originally defined different styles of self-defense or attack that were used to train military or law enforcement personnel, hence the martial part. Ancient styles also focused on internal reflection, with heavy emphasis on meditation, breathing, and inner peace. Nowadays, these different arts have spread so widely across the world, with a countless number of styles having been developed to date, that there is no one universal way to practice martial arts. Today, there is less need to train the military in martial arts with the development of modern weapons and technology. Of course, this doesn't mean that these individuals don't practice martial arts or self-defense. They still do. My point is that most people who begin their martial arts journey aren't doing so in order to go off to war and use their techniques. But martial arts are still prevalent globally, perhaps now more than ever. So that begs the question, do you need to know how to fight to consider yourself a martial artist? Modern martial arts still tend to focus on self-defense and physical fitness primarily. Whether you join a jiu-jitsu gym and spend most of the hour rolling with classmates as you develop submission skills, or you go to a taekwondo dojang and spend most of your time deepening flexibility and increasing agility and strength, you're ultimately working on yourself physically. I believe that generally, and this is entirely an opinionated statement on my behalf, modern martial arts have lost much of the non-physical aspects that were used to develop the original arts. More on that in a minute. A lot of today's martial artists seem to constantly compare one art to another and determine which is better by debating over which would win in a fight. Most of the time, the points are fair and valid when they come from experienced practitioners, but I think the problem is that all of these arts are being judged on one plane, combat, and all other aspects are being ignored. I'm going to make a statement that might come off as controversial, but I don't think martial arts are about fighting. Despite the word martial being in the name and the history behind the arts being used in war, my definition of martial arts might vastly differ from what is commonly accepted. To me, martial arts revolve around one's self, their internal being, and how they interact with the external universe. This does involve physical combat, which to me is unfortunate, but that is just a small part of every other interaction that occurs. Now, before I get taken out of context, I don't think there is any problem with a martial art that teaches its students how to fight and spends a majority of their time practicing that. I think if it's something the teachers enjoy teaching and the students enjoy learning, and it's legitimate, then let it be. But I also think it should go both ways, and the outlook that I'm describing shouldn't be shoved aside either, just because it focuses on something different. I practice both taekwondo and hapkido, and I don't speak for either art. I'm solely talking about my approach. I've practiced some jiu-jitsu and judo minimally as well, and I love the techniques and drills they do. At my school, we spar, learn self-defense, and practice physical fitness, but to me those are far less important than the other aspects we spend time on, the mental aspects. I would rather my impact on students be about how they view themselves and how they treat others than how many tournaments they've won in sparring. If you feel the opposite, I totally respect that, but I ask you to respect my outlook as well. As a side note, one thing we should all agree on is standing against the instructors who teach their students that what they're showing them is going to work in an altercation without fail, when that in fact is not the case. We should always be weary of instructors who do more brainwashing than talking realistically. I'm a fan of letting others do what they enjoy, but not when it deliberately endangers others and gives them a false sense of security. End of rant. So, am I saying all this because I'm a terrible fighter myself? Maybe, but I don't want to ever find out. I've said this before, but I think you can influence the amount of violence you're involved in your lifetime. You can't totally control it, and you may need to rely on your physical martial arts skills someday, even if you do everything right. But I also think some of the attitudes of certain martial artists have contributed to some of the unnecessary violence that occurs today. Arrogance and hubris play a big part for some in martial arts, which are supposed to focus on humility and meekness. So if you like to spar, keep at it. Experiment and find something you love to do. I've found what I love. That's what matters. Let's continue to get better and learn from our differences. Thanks for watching.